informed that you tested positive for COVID-19. We're going to need to know exactly who you've been with.
Okay, I'm actually a stay-at-home mom, and I work from home, but there's only one person that I've actually been in contact with.
Okay, great. We're just going to need their name.
Okay, the only person that I've been outside of my house with is Andrew Cuomo. That's Andrew
Cuomo as in the governor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, A-N-D-R.
Okay, is this a joke?
No, I'm being serious.
Okay.
We went out last Tuesday, and actually we shared a milkshake.
Ma'am, this is a serious question.
We were using one straw, so yeah. That's Cuomo, C-U-M. Got it?
Thank you, I got it.
Thank you, bye, have a great day.
Well, that's how you do it.
That is how you do it.
Yeah, you just fucking lie to those assholes.
I mean, I wasn't sure it was real. I mean, I'm sure it probably was.
If it was, that's cool. If it wasn't, that's fine too.
Yeah, but I've never been contact traced, and
no,
I don't know anybody who has.
No.
So I'm not sure
it doesn't matter.
It's funny.
It's funny all the same.
It's funny.
Cheers, Julie.
Cheers.
It is the holidays now. Now that we're into the, I guess the teens, the double digits of the December.
Mm. Oh yeah, it's officially the holidays, right?
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah. Well, we got some festive lights in the background, and it's another bookmark. So last week we talked to our friend in San Francisco, Mike Caccioppoli.
Caccioppoli.
Mm-hmm. And so this week we're going off book. We're kind of like, there's no script, there's no notes. We're just kind of talking, and it's been a tough week for us. I mean, last week...
it's been a tough year.
Well, it's been a very tough year, but this last week I was kind of scattered and spacey all week. I've been working on a script for another video, and so I've been a little off my game, but how about you?
Well, I mean, I've been having trouble sleeping at night and having trouble keeping a regimented sleep pattern, and But I think the reason that we were so feeling anxious and our sleep patterns were disrupted, one of the things is because we were being threatened with another lockdown, which we are in the midst of right now.
Right.
So it came true, and we were hoping it wouldn't.
The thing is it's like a lot of the stuff that's shut down, I don't give a shit about. Like they were talking about gyms and stuff, and it's like, well, Julie and I, we like to go swimming, so we don't belong to a gym per se. I don't go lift weights and do that shit. I swim. I go to a pool, and the pools have been shut down ever since March.
Right. So I don't think the pools are ever going to open again.
Either.
In general. I think another thing too that's been really affecting us is that we know people personally who are incapable of, through no fault of their own.
Yeah, well, many of our friends are in urban centers, and so a lot of this bullshit that's happening is in the urban centers, right? And so, a couple of our friends are in some of the cities that are getting it the worst.
Or the city that is getting it the worst is the one we just left.
Right. And so it's very frustrating to watch, and it's very frustrating to have it happen. Julie wrote a post on our blog, book-of-hours.com/blog, and there's something that she posted about the restaurants. She talked about the lockdown, but she specifically talked about the restaurants and how restaurants seem to be capitulating the most.
The restaurants some of the restaurants, not all of them.
Right.
Some of them are being used as the way to police citizens. So when this first happened back in March, within a couple of months, we first saw Canadian restaurants in Vancouver and Toronto, acting as or fronting as contact tracers. And they're usually these really trendy, hip restaurants, you know, the kind of places that we would like to go to, that are typically like, you know, they serve either vegetarian or vegan food, or they're a little bit more than just diner food, you know, which is our palate,
Right.
you know. But they were fronting as contact tracers.
Right.
So what we're getting in the United States is the restaurants are being used as a way to train the citizenry, train the public on how to be, on how to get used to being humiliated by wearing a mask. So
Right.
the restaurants are being used to train the public to wear a mask and wear a muzzle and a suffocation device like an obedient slave. And there are some restaurants in Pennsylvania, a few, that have said, no, we're not going to make our customers wear a mask.
Right.
We are not going to do that. We're not going to make our customers wear a muzzle. That's ridiculous.
And they're going to stay open
And they're going to stay open.
for indoor dining. Okay, so
Right.
so there's you know, this order that they either have to do takeout or they have to do outdoor seating, and it's, you know, it's winter, so Pennsylvania right
I
now,
know.
this, you know,
This idea of outdoor seating is so
is,
silly.
you know, and even with even, you know, so we're dealing with, you know, temperatures in the 30s right now, and yay, but you know, even with the plastic tents and those you know, heaters, those smudge heaters, whatever they're called, those ones that are overhead and they're gas, even with those, I mean, that's just not a pleasant experience. And you know, and obviously, you know, we know that this is bullshit, right? That, you know, it doesn't matter if you're eating inside of a fucking tent or if you're inside the restaurant. You know, the so-called risk that they're worried about is pretty much the same. I don't understand, you know, well, okay. I'm thinking what other people are thinking in what I'm about to say. I don't understand what the difference is. Why are they making us sit outside? Well, there's a lot of reasons for that, you know, and they're trying to make things as uncomfortable as possible. They want us not to be in these places in the first place. Julie's blog post talked about how, you know, these are anti-life measures of like taking us away from the third space and talking to each other over a table or over food and drinks. And these are the places that people meet and talk over, you know, ideas and thoughts, or just socialize. You know, it doesn't even have to be business or, you know, whatever. And these are the things that are being taken away from us bit by bit by bit. And by capitulating, these restaurant owners are helping to chip away at our society and our humanity.
They're collaborators. This is war, and so within war, in wartime tactics, you have spies, you have collaborators, you have generals, you have, you know, propaganda. This is war. And the restaurants that are forcing you to, and any business that forces you to put a suffocation device all over your face, or has little stickers all over the floor telling you where you can stand, or little stickers on the tables and in the seating area that tell you you have to sit every other table and sit apart. That's all collaboration. That is all collaborative. That is collaborating with the enemy, and you don't want to fraternize with the collaborators because the collaborators are doing the bidding of the enemy.
Right. Yeah.
It's the same concept as when those who were building out the box cars and the train cars and laying the railroad ties for, you know, to take the indigents of society into the labor camps in Nazi Germany. You don't collaborate with those people. You don't hang out with and go give your money to people who are taking human beings to be destroyed. You don't do that. If you dine or shop at a place that makes you wear a mask or has little stickers on the floor or tells you to socially distance or wants you to have your temperature taken every day, that's collaboration. You don't fraternize with the collaborators. They're dangerous. They're dangerous to your, well, to your freedom and to your life. They'll kill you. So,
Well, the other day,
I mean, I don't know how else to say it.
yeah, a couple bookmarks back, we showed you a clip of a restaurant that was setting up tables outside in 36 degree, 33 degree weather. You know, and if you looked at the video, you could even see little flurries coming into into the frame. And I was thinking to myself, oh, that looks pleasant. Well, I drove by there today, and they have their curtains drawn. Okay, so now as a result of the announcement from the governor's administration, I think they just said fuck it and just drew the curtains. I don't know if they're going to do takeout or not. It looked like they were just
I
closing.
Suppose we could look online and find out. You know how Pittsburgh is. Everybody uses Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook. But the point is that
weird.
I don't know why they don't just say fuck it, let's open.
Right. The way there's a whole bunch of restaurants in Pennsylvania. Most of them, if not all of them, are outside of the Pittsburgh area.
Right.
That are opening their businesses anyway for dine-in, even though the governor's decree has said, you know, you may not, you know, have dine-in. And so there's so many different things going on here. In every concentrated area, in every urban area, so San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia,
Boston,
Portland, Seattle, all these centers of urban commerce, Toronto, Montreal, you know, Barcelona, France, you know, Paris, all of these centers of urban commerce are being incredibly fascistic. This is why a few months ago, I want to say like even before Thanksgiving, the highways and the streets of Paris had the largest traffic jam in the history of the country outside of Paris, because the French mandates had just been laid down, were just instructed by...
Right, we showed a video of that.
By Macron, I believe.
Yeah.
And everybody knew that in the center of commerce, Paris, that they were going to be incredibly fascistic and close up. So they loaded up their automobiles, they closed up their apartments, and they went to the outer areas. They went to the outer lying areas, you know, that were not in urban areas. I don't know how to say it, like, you know, a little tired, it's Friday night, but right. You know what I mean? So that's what's happening here in Pennsylvania. It's the same thing. You know, Pittsburgh is, the city that we currently live in, is being incredibly fascistic, and yet all of these outer boroughs and municipalities and towns, little towns, you know, every few restaurants in these little towns are like, no, we're not going to change anything. Right. You know, now some of them are still making you wear a mask when you walk through the door because they're feeling really hinky about staying open, even though the governor said to close. Yeah. So I think they're just being like really precautious, and they're going to make their customers wear a mask when they walk through the door to dine inside. You know, and so for that, I have to give them a little bit of a pass, because they're already defying these orders anyway.
Yeah, well, it helps. It helped that there were two restaurants in Pennsylvania that defied the orders right from the beginning.
These two restaurant owners are these two like ball-busting women. I'm not kidding. Yeah. One's directly from Italy, like she's Italian, right? And she's like, I'm not doing any of this nonsense. My customers don't have to wear masks. I am not shutting my doors. Right. You know, and she got fined. You know, a lot of people were... so here's something really interesting that happened. We posted on social media on a group called Reopen PA, and we said, here are the following restaurants that we could find in the state of Pennsylvania that are going to defy Wolf's orders and allow you to still have indoor dining. Here they are. I mean, the likes and the comments and the reshares were just like over the top. I was just like overwhelmed. I had to step away from social media for like the rest of the day, because it was like, you know, for a small private group, it got like everybody on the group was like loving it and liking it. And all of those restaurants most of which are not in Allegheny County or in the Pittsburgh area, all of those restaurants took the lead from Taste of Sicily and Cracked Egg. And both of those restaurants, ironically, are run by extremely strong women, you know, and...
Right. Well, Cracked Egg is in our area. It's in the Pittsburgh, Allegheny County area. And then Taste of Sicily is in the eastern part of the state.
Too far for us.
Too far for us. It's about a 6-hour drive to get there. So we, I think we passed through that county when we were driving around last summer.
Last summer? Okay.
Yeah, this past summer, but yeah. Anyway, but we didn't go near that town.
Right.
You know. But
oh, I know what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Is you know, so we had like something like 1,200 likes and loves and hundreds of comments, but every once in a while we got a comment that said, you know, you shouldn't name these places that are going to be defying the governor's orders. You know, there's spies everywhere, you know. And we were like, okay, first of all, it's not a law. It's not based in science or law. And we're not run by governor's decrees.
no.
We're run by the rule of law. So, or we are governed by the rule of law. We are not governed by, you know,
the
rumors.
The emergency shutdowns of things that the governor is allowed to do are for, you know, real actual emergencies, right? And they're short term. They're not, you know, like this one's 3 weeks, but you know, usually they're like a week or two at the most. Because they're weather related or they're disaster related.
Right.
And this is nowhere near a disaster, and his overreach is just boundless.
Is uncharted. So we told these people, you know, no, you even if there are spies who are going to tell on these restaurants that are defying his orders and allowing indoor dining anyway, what's going to happen? You know. What's going to happen? There's nothing that will happen.
Not only that, but we weren't the only ones that were posting this information.
Right. We had senators posting the names of the restaurants. We had
state senators.
We had, like, you know, the restaurants themselves were going public and saying, you know what, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
It's the holidays and it's 2 weeks. So between December 12th at midnight and January 4th, we're going to just run our business like we always do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And the whole point is that the spies, you know, this idea, oh, but the spies are going to come and tell on these places, and then these places are going to get fined. And, well, that's what happened to Taste of Sicily. So they opened, or they stayed open. They never shut during this entire pandemic. They got a $1,000 fine. They didn't pay it. They fought it. Instead, they got an attorney, and they ran a GoFundMe account to pay for their attorney's fees. And then they got another fine for $5,000, and then another fine for $10,000, and then another fine for $15,000, until they had racked up $20,000 worth of fines. And finally, when they had their day in court, the judge said, all the fines are waived. Nope.
There's no law.
None of
There's no law to support
law.
this.
None of this is law. There's no basis for these fines.
Right.
So even if there were spies to tell on the restaurants who are keeping their doors open and having indoor dining, despite the fact that the, you know, Emperor Wolf has made his decree throughout the land, which is not based on law, even if there were spies to tell on these restaurants, it wouldn't matter.
It's not law.
It's not law.
Right,
There's
right,
no
right.
law. Laws are based in there has to be statutory law, meaning that, you know, when a cop gives you a ticket because you've violated some kind of law, that violation is attached to a statute, and that statute has a number. So, for instance, you know, if you're jaywalking, there's a statute for jaywalking. There's a statute
which is actually a bullshit law, but anyway, that's another story altogether.
Okay. You know, there's a statute for, you know, armed robbery. There's a statute for assault. There is a statute for all sorts of things that are against the law. There's no statute
And-
for not having indoor dining.
Right.
There is no statute for wearing a mask.
And going back to your civics lesson, okay, it's the governor signs the law signs the bill into law, but it goes through the houses of Congress, right? So in the case of Pennsylvania, it's a Commonwealth. There's a Congress, or there's a Senate and a state and a House of Representatives. In California, they were called Assembly or whatever, and the Senate.
It's called the General Assembly here as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
Anyway, the point is that just like with the federal government, it goes through Congress, then it gets worked out between the two houses of Congress. Then it goes to the president for signature, and he either signs it or he vetoes it, right? And I'm saying he because we haven't had a female president yet. And so, this is how it works. The president doesn't make laws just outright. The governors don't make laws just outright. The mayors don't make laws just outright. They have to go through
a process. Right. And the process takes time, and it has to be voted on. We have said this ad nauseum, and other instructors or podcasters, people that have far many more followers, way more followers than we do, have talked about the rule of law and what constitutes an emergency and what constitutes a law. And neither one of those things, the thing that defines an emergency or constitutes an emergency, and the thing that defines a law or constitutes a law, none of those things in this situation have a statute attached to them. So this is really basic stuff.
Right. And the sad thing is a couple of anarchists are schooling these people, Julie and I, schooling these people.
I know. That's what
on this bullshit.
That's what's
right?
so shocking is like, okay, so we are like the most anti-government, anti-authoritarian people you will ever meet. We would much prefer grassroots, like real grassroots, like one-on-one, face-to-face, small little groups of people getting together to work on small microscopic microcosm of direct democracy. I'm not even talking about going out and trying to take over your entire municipalities or your entire regions. I'm literally talking like me and my next door neighbor.
Well,
and that's it. Like
a neighborhood that's federated with other neighborhoods that then cooperate with one another.
Sure,
then federate with other larger groups.
Yeah. So for us, of all people, for us to be telling you about how law works and how democracy works and how statutes works, it's a little weird. But it's always the artists that pave the way for enlightenment.
Right.
So that's the only thing I just have to keep looking at that big existential picture, lest I lose myself in frustration.
Right. The philosophers may codify it, but I think the artists really are the ones that kind of point.
Yeah, I mean the only reason you had, because you don't have official freedom anymore. You just don't. If you're allowing yourselves to be enslaved in a suffocation device, a mask, then you've chosen to fall at the feet of your tyrannical overseers, and you live with a boot on your neck. I mean, that's your choice, and that's not freedom.
Right.
So anyway, I feel like skipping a beat a bit regarding my new video that's only available to our patrons right now. Mm-hmm. And we're going to make this short. We'll wrap this up soon.
Well, okay, so Julie just released a new video. What's it called?
It's called Munchausen.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Which kind of...
Tell us a little bit about it.
Which kind of gives it away. I mean, Munchausen is when you...
Munchausen syndrome.
Right, so Munchausen syndrome is when you are trying to convince the world that you have an incurable disease or that you're very sick, and you get doctors to prescribe medication for you. You love the attention or the idea of being sick.
Right. The attention that you get from being sick.
And the attention that you get from being sick. And little kids pretend to be sick all the time so they can get out of school, at least in the old days.
Well, I used to.
Right. So little kids do that all the time, but they grow out of it. They grow out of it. But if you don't grow out of it, it becomes a disorder until you've got, you've got the entire system. You've got doctors and employers and friends and family members believing that you have this like incurable disease. So they give you attention, they give you money. Maybe you even, can get benefits, like disability benefits. I'm not saying that people who are on disability are faking it, not at all. But what I'm saying is that there are people out there who have this disorder. It's called Munchausen syndrome. Well, when you take that to the next step and you are a healthy person, JP is a healthy person. He's a really good example. JP is a really healthy person. Back when we were allowed to swim, he would swim every day. He still rides his bike every day, even in bitterly cold weather and in the snow. He's vegetarian. He does everything right. Takes the supplements. He's good at being healthy. Like one of the healthiest people I know. Mm-hmm. And yet, every day, he has to have his temperature taken by his employer. And his employer, it's a minimum wage job. It doesn't even give us enough money to keep the lights on. How's that? That's why we need our patrons so bad. But his employer says, in order to have this job, we have to take your temperature every day. And we have to ask you how you're feeling. So every day they ask him, how are you feeling? And they take his temperature, and every day he's like, I'm fine. And every day his temperature is normal.
Right.
So that is Munchausen syndrome by proxy, when an authority figure who has control over your life somehow. So this authority figure in JP's life gives him like a little bit of money to do a minimum wage job. And when that authority figure is trying to tell you and tell the whole world that you're sick and offer your bio data to institutions that should not be having access to your bio data, that's a disorder called Munchausen syndrome by proxy. He is a victim of this idea that he is a sick person every day.
Well, I think that another good example is in the movie The Sixth Sense.
Sure.
Little girl, you see her only on video. Well, you see her as a ghost talking to the main character, but then you see a video that she made of her mother poisoning her.
Right.
And so the mother was basically using the child as a means of getting attention through her illnesses.
Right.
That the mother created by poisoning her.
Right. And so I think what's happening, that's a very obvious example of
But
Munchausen.
I like your example of me, right?
Right. Well, so, that's a very obvious example of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, where an authority figure in your life is poisoning you, you're getting sick, and then that authority figure is saying, oh, they have cancer, oh, they have this incurable disease, when really they're causing the sickness.
Right.
So it's not like we have, Jeff Bezos poisoning us,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? And all these corporations that have taken over the government and are, and the central banks which have swallowed up our infrastructure and privatized everything. It's not like they're poisoning us outright, but they are, in a way, by telling everybody, oh, you're sick. So your entire life now, for the rest of your life, is going to be based on how healthy you are. Mm-hmm. If you want to go run across the street and grab a cup of coffee at your coffee shop and maybe a scone or a croissant or a donut, you've got to put on the mask. Maybe one day you might have to prove that you've had a vaccine. Who knows, maybe they will even want to take your temperature. That's Munchausen syndrome by proxy. When perfectly healthy people who are not sick are being told they're sick, and then they have to pantomime protection of an invisible sickness.
And being told that exactly. Well, being told that humans are sick too, and I think that's an even greater, more global essence of this, right? So the whole world is being told
Right.
that it's illness. And I like that you have said in the past that we're all going to become, or we all are now, disabled. We're all being treated as if we're the disabled.
Right. And I keep saying this, and I said this from March, and I keep saying it all along, since the hammer came down on all of us. In mid-March, if you want to know what your life is going to be like for the rest of your life, if you want to know what your life is going to be like for your children's life, if you want to know what your children are going to have to go through for the rest of their lives, just talk to a disabled person. Mm-hmm. Just talk to a disabled person, and the way that they have to be a part of a system that tells them that in order to qualify for enough food to put in their mouth or feed their families, that they have to prove that they're sick, that they have to prove, and it's an entire world, an entire system that you have never experienced.
And you have to do this over and over again, and not just once.
Right.
If they come back and they assume that you've gotten better from your chronic disease, as if. Right.
So everybody on the world now is going to be chronic. Everybody in the world now is going to be chronic. You want that $1,200 a month universal basic income, that $1,200 a month? Well, then you have to get your temperature taken, every 2 weeks. You have to put a mask on everywhere you go. You have to possibly get a vaccine for diseases that don't even exist. You've got to live on dashboards and have social media credit scores. It's this entire system that's based on a couple of different things. You being a good person, which comes out of this whole common good communitarianism bullshit.
I was just going to mention that. I'll bring that up.
And being a sick person.
Right.
So we are getting it. We are being attacked from every end. Right. It's kind of like The Handmaid's Tale wrapped in
1984.
Contagion, or in 1984, with a nice little bow of 1984 and Brave New World on top of it, or We, the book We, which is a Russian novel.
Or what was that, Colony? That
Netflix show, Colony. Right. So we're all being trained right now. We're in our training mode.
Right.
We're being indoctrinated.
You mentioned, so what I was going to bring up is not only is it, physical health, but then behavioral and mental health are also coming into play here. So, you have to behave properly. That's what a lot of people are talking about with like the social credit scores and things of that nature, right? Mm-hmm. And that whole thing is all on behavioral marketing, behavioral markets, where investors put in money to make sure that people receive services to make sure that their behavior meets the standards of the community, and as well as mental health, and like for the last few years, I don't know if you remember or you recall, but like for a while there, people were like, oh, make sure you check in on your friends.
It just happened today.
I know, right?
It just happened today. It happened with Ted.
Right.
He did it again.
I know, he did it again.
He does it every week.
So we listened to a DJ on this streaming service.
Very liberal. Nice guy, but liberal.
Kind
of fascist.
And kind of stupid.
Kind of fascist.
Fascist and stupid, they go hand in hand.
But I love the music he plays.
Okay, but anyway, the point is that I heard him say that, and I was like, this whole thing with like people being isolated and forced to be online and social media and away from other people, this whole thing about mental health and checking in on your friends and all this shit that's been going on for the last couple of years has been a lead up, like many other things, to what we're going through now. And so it normalized the idea that people were going to be dealing with mental health issues and crises, and that you're going to have to be able to reach out to them remotely, remember,
which
it always has been
empty.
About it's an empty gesture, right?
Empty gesture.
But even if it isn't empty, even if it's authentic, you can't help that person because you're not there. You aren't in their presence. You aren't, you can't help them, right? You can only call them and talk to them on the phone. After they hang up with you, you can't do anything for them. And even
Right.
if you, okay, granted, even if you were in their presence and you went to visit them and then you left and they had a breakdown, you can't help them then. But what I'm trying to say is that physical contact, that one-on-one talking in person makes a bigger difference than if you're talking to somebody on the phone or by email or by text or by whatever means, right? Even if it's a Zoom call, it's not the same thing. It's a one-dimensional experience. And I think that all this bullshit about, checking on your friends and all this shit, like this dude that we listen to, has been going on to prepare us for these kinds of, interactions.
Yeah. I mean, two things I want to say to that. First of all, we were a little rough on Ted.
I'm rough on Ted because I just find him really obnoxious.
I think he's having a harder time with this whole Great Reset thing than...
Well, because they don't want to admit, these liberals don't want to admit that it's happening.
Yeah, they don't want to admit that they're living in the throes of fascism.
And that they helped it happen.
And so here's Ted, who's running this little streaming service, and he goes live on it every Friday, and he does this really powerful, amazing show where he, offers, new music that's come out, and we love it. And, our whole life about going to see shows was sort of like, he kind of like curated that for us. Like if we heard a new band and we're like, whoa, that sounds good. That's how we heard about Savages, right?
Well, no, I heard about them other place, but
that's true. Yeah, but there are, whatever. So we run in the same musical circles, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So,
but we have gone to many shows because of the things that he's played.
Right. So today, when he did his show, he was particularly rough. You could hear it in his voice. Just, he was beaten down. He was tired. And there's no shows to go to because everything's locked down. So always before, when he was beaten down and tired on his live broadcast, it was because he had gone to a late night show Thursday night. He does his broadcast at 9 o'clock in the morning from 9 to 5, on Fridays.
Yeah.
So we always knew it was because he was out late the night before at a concert. And we were like, oh, there's Ted. He's doing the thing, but he's a little rough today because he had a show that he went to the night before. Well, since there are no shows to go to, we're like, okay, so why is he feeling so rough? Why? He was really making a lot of mistakes today. Mm-hmm. He was kind of stumbling over his words. He was really out of it. I mean, it was bad. And then he went into his spiel about, if you know of anybody who's seeking, mental health or anybody who's really suffering, make sure you look out for them. Now, I'm listening to him, and my spidey senses are tingling, and I'm wondering if that wasn't so much a message for us to look out for other people that might be, feeling the psychological and emotional pressure of this, or if that was himself. Like, if he was saying, I'm suffering, I'm hurting, help, well, that's why I want to give him a little bit of a pass. I know in the past he was absolutely brutal during the 2016 campaign. I mean, he is a tried and true deep blue Dem, right? And he was absolutely brutal toward us for not voting for Hillary. So that friendship waned a little bit, but
I don't talk to him anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I tag him on certain things, but I feel like right now he's really suffering, and I feel like a lot of people are suffering.
We know that because I'm not going to name names, but we know three individuals.
Really good friend.
Yeah. We know three individuals who we've talked to in this past week. Mm-hmm. Who are all dealing with different things. All related to this bullshit. Mm-hmm. And, one of our friends reached out to us and said, I had this incident take place.
Oh my God.
And he was beside himself.
Basically like my best friend.
Right. And it's
he
like,
is.
and...
Hi, Kevin.
Okay, well, I wasn't going to name names, but,
whatever.
But it's really difficult out there in the first place. But then when you have people attacking you, it's even worse. And, I've been dealing with this. I'm not saying that I'm impervious because I'm feeling the bullshit too. Okay, it just in the general, anxiety in the world, I'm feeling it.
Well, let's say what happened to Kevin. Let's talk
But
about what happened to
I've
him.
been dealing with people attacking me on the street
Your whole life.
for years. Well, my whole life, but especially the last, 13, 14 years as a cyclist, okay? Especially in San Francisco. I don't get as much shit around here as I did in San Francisco, which is supposed to be a place where, it's cyclist friendly and all this bullshit. No, it's not. It's so not. And I
Right.
would get attacked all the time. I mean, I basically had to count on it every single fucking day
Right.
that I was out on a bike, right?
Yeah.
And so I've been able to learn how to deal with the attacks in public from people who are stupid and don't know what the fuck they're talking about and are angry at me because I'm basically in their way or doing something that they don't want me doing.
Something that they perceive to be,
Right. Okay.
whatever. Well, so we're gonna wrap this up,
Mm-hmm.
but just to leave you with this note, what I'm seeing in society is an increase in violence from the people who wear the mask, and they love the mask. My best friend, who is the most he's like the nicest person you'll ever meet. He's very, very mild. He's not confrontational at all. Was minding his own business the other day, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a woman said to him, "I should spit on you because you're not wearing a mask." And he was so shocked and he was so shaken that he didn't even know what to say. Like, he lost his words. I mean, we're talking about the most mild-mannered, non-confrontational person you'll ever meet. I've known him since I was like 20, so I've known him for 30 years. He is, and his personality has never changed. For the last 30 years, his personality has been like this. He is super chill. He is not confrontational. So for her to say that to him, I just want to put that out there. For her to say that to him, he did not antagonize her. He did not ask to be threatened with assault. She threatened to spit on him.
That's assault.
That is assault. And I told him when he called me and he was all shaken, and he called and I said, "Do you know where she lives? Do you know her name? Do you know anything? Because you could file charges of assault against her." That absolutely, and the cops would back you up on that. He was like, "I don't know, I was so shaken, I didn't know anything." So I want to end this by saying, I really feel that the people who are embracing the mask and embracing the fascism and embracing this common good language of, I'm wearing a mask to protect the entire world. I didn't know you had that much power. I didn't
Right.
know you had the
Right.
power of God within you.
But the thing is at the same time, though, they say that, and yet they want you to do the same, right? So that you're protecting them, the person that is wearing the mask to protect the rest of us. So I have to protect you by wearing a mask. That just doesn't make any sense. Right?
Okay,
if
well-
you're already doing it, then why do I have to?
Right.
Right. And aside from the fact that these things are just complete bullshit, and the
a marketing
masks don't do
campaign.
it's a marketing campaign, right? This whole thing is, why we even have to go down the rabbit hole of wearing masks or not wearing masks, or how effective they are, or the death rate or the infection rate or whatever the fuck, right? This whole thing, this is why, Julie and I, for a long time there, we got to a point where we're like, okay, we're not talking about this anymore.
Right.
We're not going down the rabbit holes anymore.
Right.
Because this whole thing, at the very top of it, like, there's all this stuff that everybody gets all obsessed with, right? But at the very top of it, you don't even have to talk about it because it's not real. It's a marketing campaign. It is not real, okay? Now, what I would like to say in response to what you were talking about is that what I would like to offer to you, our viewers, is that, if you are out there and you're feeling like you're getting attacked, okay? Something that I've learned myself from my cycling experience and what I notice with what you said about our friend, okay, minding his own business. When I find that I'm minding my own business and just having a nice ride home from work and not paying really attention, I mean, I'm paying attention to traffic and I'm being courteous and all those things, but I'm not really paying attention to what's going on. Like, I'm somewhere else. You have to be on. I'm sorry, folks, but from now on, we're all...
Just walking out your door.
When you're out in public, when you're out, you have to be mindful of your surroundings. You have to be mindful of how you present yourself. And especially if you're not masking up and capitulating to this bullshit, you have to be centered. And you have to be aware of your surroundings.
Right.
And you have to be ready to defend yourself.
You're at war.
Not physically, I'm not saying that. What you have to do is you have to be in the mindset to be able to snap back something that says, I don't have to wear a mask because whatever you want to say.
Right.
Okay?
So
but you have to have that already in you to be able to say it back. Okay?
Think of soldiers at war. Soldiers at war, they, when they're in the middle of a war zone. I'm sorry, I have a brother who's, in the military, so I often think of him and the way that he operates when he's out in the field, right?
Aerosol.
Right? So he doesn't just, even though, like, in real life when he's not, when he's not out on the field and he's just at home, like, with the kids, he's like really goofy. And you would never know that he was in the military. But when he is in the military, he's on, and that's what you have to do. Is every time you want to go buy eggs, you have to literally say, okay, it's wartime. And you've got to psych yourself out and be ready for this combative exchange. And be ready for someone to threaten to spit on you. Be ready for someone to call you an asshole, which happened to me. And take your picture without your permission, which happened to me. You've got to be ready for that. You're at war. This is war. And you don't just, walk out of your house and, sniff the roses and la-da-da, and all this when you're at war. No, you've got to put on your armor. You've got to psych yourself out mentally and emotionally. You've got to do that. That's your life from now on. That's the life. That's your life everywhere. I don't care who you are, whether you're a little kid, or whether you're a parent or an older person or you're a soccer mom, I don't care. You're at war now. You're at war, and you've got to behave that way. You've got to protect yourself because they're winning.
And I'm not.
They're winning.
And neither of us are saying you have to protect yourself through violence.
No, we're just saying.
But you have to be centered, and you have to be grounded, and you have to be aware of who you are, what your purpose is at that moment in space outside, and what you're going to be doing and how you're going to respond. And I'm not saying react, respond to what's coming at you.
Right. I mean, and your posture, the way you hold your head,
right?
How you train your voice to be strong,
right?
Just those few things can change the outcome of everything.
Sometimes, again, when going back to the example
that will be
on
intimidated by that, and you didn't show any violence. All you did was have a good posture.
Right. When I'm on my bike, oftentimes I will have to say, okay, I'm getting out on the road now. I have to pay attention. I can't, be relaxed. Or just stupid or whatever. I have to ride with purpose.
Right.
Okay? My posture changes like that.
Yeah.
Because when you're riding without really thinking about what you're doing, people will attack you. You look vulnerable. You are a mark. Okay?
Right.
So please, when you're out there, do not be a mark. Adjust your posture. Be present. And you will not be bothered probably as much as you would be otherwise.
That's a really excellent advice.
Okay. Well, we're cutting it short this week.
Okay.
But we hope that you have a nice week. We're running up on the holidays. And very soon it will be over. But, up until then, I'm JP.
And I'm Julie.
And this is Book of Hours. And we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Book of Hours is determined to remain an essential platform that offers a creative interpretation for lockdown skeptics and experts who have been censored by mainstream press. Thanks to your donations, we can carry on doing this essential work as working artists. These big issues of the day are vital and need to be heard. So please share our videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel, make a one-time donation on our PayPal page, but most importantly, please be a part of our team on our Patreon page. Go to patreon.com/bookofhours and hit the blue button titled Become a Patron. Thank you.